Welcome back to another crochet tutorial with Cozy Rosie UK, and today I am sharing with you how I lined my Sunny Days market bag. Now this bag has been made with a base, so it has a 2-inch wide base, so it needs to have a boxed lining, which means that it will be, instead of just a plain slip-in, we're going to have a bit of a box at the bottom to give us a really nice base. So the materials that I'm using for this tutorial is of course my Sunny Days bag, all completed, all ends woven, and the handles are attached. I also have some thread to almost match my fabric that I'm going to use to sew the lining to the bag. I also have a darning needle and a sewing needle just in case I need it, and I am going to be using my machine to sew the seams. So I'm going to need some scissors so that I can trim those edges of the additional fabric that we have. So grab your bag, grab your fabric, and let's get stitching. Now I am no seamstress, but I'm going to show you the way that I line this type of bag. I might need to change the angle so you can see more of what I'm doing. I have a folded piece of fabric. This is just a little bit of scrap that I've got, and it's reasonably ironed, and I've lined up the edges and it's folded at the bottom here, open at the top. I'm just going to place my bag at, I don't know how I've managed this, but I've got almost the right length of fabric, because what we need is for our fabric to measure the width of our bag, so roughly 12 inches, and then for the height we need to make an allowance for our base or our box at the bottom. Now this is not intentional, but my edging is right there. I'd like a little bit more space. So we need to measure the depth of our bag, which is about 9 inches, plus half of the width of our base. So I'm going to need about a 10-inch height plus what they call seam allowance. And I have literally just 10.5 inches of this length of fabric, and I'm going to call that good enough because I'm going to sew in just inside and down a little bit. By the time I've folded my fabric, I should have just enough. So the first thing we're going to do is very simply lay out our fabric flat, place our bag on top, and basically sketch out where we need to sew our first lines. I'm not gonna, this is the selvage edge, which is the bit where there are lines. If I move that out of the way, not very pretty. So let me first of all cut this edge, leaving a little bit of a seam allowance. So I'm just going to cut along this line. This is where you see that I'm left-handed and it's impossible for me to cut. But you want to make sure that they are pretty much level. I do not have fabric scissors. I do somewhere, but can't tell you where they are. So now that we have the width that we want for our bag, including the seam allowance, see there's a bit either side, I'm going to go and iron this bit down, just a little section before I seam the sides, and that will create our bag opening and give us a nice top as well. So I'm going to go and iron these and sew down each side, and then I'll be back so we can work out our calculations for our box bottom of the bag. So now we have a perfectly sewn, it's a very tight edge there, and I've got this excess fabric here. So I am going to cut along this line here, just kind of removing some of the excess fabric. Don't need to worry too much about these edges because they are going to be on the inside of our bag. So it's going to literally just fit inside our bag here. But we do need to sort the base out. So we need to make a note of how wide our base is. In this case, it's about 2 inches. Sorry, excuse the state of my measuring tape. It's very well loved and well used. And there is actually a really easy way to create a box base. I would recommend using a ruler. And then, so let me grab that. I'm just using a gauge ruler because we only need to find a measurement of 2 inches. The first thing I'm going to do is fold my lining in half and line my seams up, and then kind of just bring my edge down so that it's nice and neat. And I want that point. And we are simply going to measure or move our ruler up until, or not until, we have a 2-inch measurement. So there's the start. I even go a little bit further. So a 2-inch measurement. It might not be as much as you think. And then I'm just going to draw across, because we are just going to sew along this point here. We need to do it for the other side as well. So again, I'm just going to check. Oh, well, that worked out quite well. And just bring that down, finding that 2-inch measurement once again. And again, I'm just going to draw a line across, and I'm just going to sew across this line here on both edges, so that we're going to have 2 corners that are marked. So I'm just going to quickly run those through my machine. And once we have those corners sewn, I've got loads of threads, I'm not very good at all this. Just going to trim those off so it looks a bit better. So sewn along that line, we are simply going to cut these corners off. I don't have pinking shears, I really wish I did, but quite close to where we've done. So that's that one done. And then we're going to do the same on this corner, just trim these threads. And then we're going to cut along that other corner. And that, you can't really see, but it creates your perfect sized box bag. So it makes our box width the same as the bottom of our bag. Threads everywhere. I tell I'm no seamstress. So simply now, we just need to open our bag and somehow push it to the bottom. It should fit nicely. You can't see obviously, but it fits nicely in our corners, and there is a full lining including your bag base. Trying to line up my seams with the center of my handle, and I'm just kind of going to manipulate it around. You can see that because we picked the width of the bag, it's a near perfect fit. Now I'm going to grab my pins and take a moment or two working around the edge, just kind of pinning it in place. And I'm going to hand stitch my lining to my bag all the way around. And we have pretty much made, get rid of some of these threads, and I'm aiming to get the next seam to meet the handle, and couldn't get closer really, so that's good. So once I've finished pinning this lining in place, I am going to thread my needle with that similarly coloured thread that goes with my lining, and I'm going to take my time to stitch the lining to the bag itself, working through the fabric and kind of half of the stitch so that my sewing needle doesn't come all the way through my crochet fabric, so it's not visible from the outside. I hope you've enjoyed learning how to make a boxed lining for your bags, and I will see you again in the next video.